This is the story of the one. As a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility, he knows keeping the line up and running is a top priority. That's why he chooses Grainger. Because when a drive belt gets damaged, Grainger makes it easy to find the exact specs for the replacement product he needs. And next-day delivery helps ensure he'll have everything in place and running like clockwork. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA Broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a fantastic show lined up for you today. So we just, a brief breakdown here. We have our regularly scheduled 1 hour long episode approximately of the MOA broadcast, the Make It Out Alive broadcast. And I'd gotten a number of emails and feedback and requests that people would like something a little bit shorter they can listen to, like maybe on the ride to or from work or while running around, town doing errands or whatever else, put it on the background while they're in the car or the house folding laundry, who knows. So what I'm going to try and do, I don't know if I'll be able to do it very frequently, but we'll try and get in them smaller, like a 20 to 30 minute episode once or twice a week. That's not going to be as in depth, just like, covering some news headlines, maybe some interesting stuff that comes up, and, pro tips for the outdoors or whatever it may be. So we'll see. Today's episode is going to be between 20 and 30 minutes. I'm not quite sure yet. It's kind of fun to get on in front of the microphone here and just ramble on, as I am often want to do. So we'll see how it goes. And I forgot that if you've been listening to our regularly scheduled broadcast or programming, you'll know that we now have Cobra, the black shop cat, with us here in the Gear Convoy shop, and he is going to be joining us today. So let's see if he'll say hello for the microphone. Make sure you listen now. I'll try and be quiet. And there that is. Now I got to put him down before he scratches me out. My arms and hands are already completely chewed up from play fighting with Cobra. He is turning out to be quite the tough little combatant. So anyway, you ought to see him when we go on walks and train him for his leash and everything. He's got a desert tan tactical vest with a leash on there, and he actually likes it. He'll walk around the house and in the shop and everything else. So we'll see how that goes, but he is doing pretty good so far. Okay, let's jump right into our program today. We got all kinds of interesting things. Now, you know what? We'll do the Chicago story next. First off, this one caught my eye while I was preparing, and I thought, let me read the headline, and then we'll jump right in. Here, look at the highlights first. I almost forgot. Man in custody after towing an ICE vehicle during an arrest. You're going to love this story. Chicago blasts its way back into the headlines over the weekend with insane, guess what, violence. California is finally rounding up the homeless. We'll get to that. That's going to be an interesting story and an ongoing one, I'm sure. And finally, a naked Niagara Falls man, after taking the wrong drug, winds up in jail. Let's just say he wanted some companionship, folks. Don't be too hard on the poor guy. Let's get right into it. Let me get a sip here first. Okay. We go to Los Angeles. This story comes to us from the New York Post, but took place in Los Angeles, the city of angels. I guess both good and bad. An LA tow truck driver arrested for stealing ICE agents' vehicle as they struggled to detain a TikTok influencer. These influencers, this is going to be an interesting life cycle or arc for influencers, because if you see, we got the choo-choo train coming up in the background. I'm shooting this out in the shop, even though there's not going to be any video for this one right now. If you would like to hear video, or if you have any input or feedback on, there it goes, input or feedback on this, how long you would like the episode to be, whether you would like it to do current events, true crime, whatever else. I'm still working on the true crime episodes. I just haven't done one in a while, but shoot us an email at info@gearconvoy.com. That's info@gearconvoy.com. Don't forget to head the website up and check out all the great sales details on all the knives and outdoor gear we have available there, the vast majority of which is U.S. made and designed by MOA. Okay. So these influencers, though, are winding up in the news all the time. I've got probably 5 or 6 stories saved to the side here off the top of my head of influencers that have done some wild and crazy things. There's got to be something about the makeup psychologically, in my opinion, for these people that tend to go out there and are able to promote themselves and push themselves to become an influencer and get these hundreds of thousands or millions of followers on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, doing some of the most bizarre things or mundane things in a bizarre way. But they're constantly in the news. So let's get to this lady here and get down to it. A tow truck driver was arrested after allegedly laughing and filming himself while towing away an ICE vehicle as agents struggled to detain an anti-ICE TikTok influencer in the country illegally. Now, I think that the TikTok influencer named 23-year-old Tatiana Mafla Martinez. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. I've never heard Mafla before, but whatever. So apparently, according to reports I've read, she would follow ICE around and stream them doing their activities, I guess, so people would know they're in the area or whatever. So I guess she was not there to help. She was apparently there to tell people ICE is present and alert them. So she was the one they were attempting to arrest. But Bobby Nunez, 33, was nabbed on Tuesday after interfering with the arrest. The agents had the woman's vehicle pinned with 2 flashing, and I saw the videos. They had the lights. The whole thing was going, law enforcement SUVs at the exit of a luxury high-rise parking garage. To prevent her from escaping. And then all of a sudden, this guy, Bobby Nunez, allegedly stepped in and decided to insert himself in the situation. And the whole thing is on cell phone cameras and everything else. They're probably not going to have a whole lot of trouble with this guy in court, whoever he is. So while they're trying to put the lady under arrest, this guy walks up and tries opening the passenger door. The cops, when ICE warned him to not interfere with a federal investigation. And I guess he didn't like hearing that because he allegedly shot back or, said, threatening something was going to happen to them. So as he walks off, a second man approached the car of this woman that's being arrested, and she was putting up quite a fight too. They had her on the ground. She wasn't going to go quietly into the night. And so the officers they're now dealing with 3 different situations here and trying to control the situation and get this lady in custody. So while they're dealing with all that, Nunez allegedly got into his Dodge tow truck and drove up, hooked up one of the government vehicles and that was boxing her car in, and he drove off with it. Just took the vehicle. So the ICE vehicle had its keys inside. There was a firearm locked in a safe, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, he just took off with the vehicle. He was allegedly laughing and filming while towing away. So they ran after him, tried to catch him. They didn't catch him. They wound up getting the lady in custody. And according to, let's see, who is this? Homeland Security Investigation. What's this guy's name? Oh, acting U.S. Attorney Bill Salye, or I don't know how you pronounce his name. No disrespect intended. He said apparently he thought it would be funny to interfere with our immigration enforcement operations. The attorney wrote on X, now he can laugh behind bars while he faces justice. Nunez has been charged with theft of government property. They later found the vehicle nearby. And he faces up to 10 years in federal prison if found guilty. Why would you do that? Why would you think that's a good idea? But he did it. And this was in broad daylight. There's cameras everywhere. So the woman they were after, though, had crossed the southern border illegally in 2022 and was promptly released into the country, even though she crossed and entered illegally. But she was convicted of a DUI recently, and that triggered her arrest by the feds. So, yeah, go figure, folks. The things that people do. I guess I hope this guy here that did he's on this. His legal status is going to be another, I'm sure, topic of conversation for them. We go to Chicago now, folks. If you remember, over the weekend on Sunday, I did our last full episode of the MOA Broadcast, and we were talking about the insane crime rate in Chicago. Just a quick reminder now. Keep in mind, Labor Day weekend hadn't ended yet by then, so things were still popping off in Chicago. But just a quick reminder: in 2024, they had 581 murders. and 2,815 shootings. They, a couple years back, let's go 2023, 621 homicides, 22, 715, and a recent career high here in 2021 of 805 murders in 2021 in Chicago. Do you realize how insane that is? You're over 2 murders per day. Okay. They didn't top that since, 1994. They had 932 homicides in 1 year. You're sneaking up on almost 3 a day in 94. Okay, anyways, so we talked about this. Now, guess what? Labor Day weekend came around, holiday weekend, everything was nice and hot, the sun was out, and Chicago didn't disappoint. 54 shot, 9 dead over Labor Day weekend, the most violent holiday weekend of the summer for Chicago. The story comes to us from, where we get this from? Either WGN or may have been the Chicago Sun-Times. I'll have to go back and double check. Either way, Chicago saw its most violent holiday weekend of the summer as President Donald Trump's threats to send the National Guard into the city have put local crime rates in the national spotlight. Now, I don't know why they had to twist that and make it seem, it almost sounds like they're saying somehow this is Trump's fault that everybody is noticing that they're murdering each other to death in Chicago, but whatever. And one other thing, folks, this story is going to get a little interesting. As usual, we stay politically neutral. We don't get involved and take sides politically. We report on facts and news and do what the news used to do, which is let you make up your own mind about what's going on. That being said, sometimes some of these stories, they simply do have political overtones because that is the nature of, politicians arguing and fighting with each other. We know that President Trump and Governor Newsom in California have an ongoing feud, that those two are constantly jabbing each other and trading barbs. We're not going to get political or take sides, but it is interesting to take note when these politicians go after each other. So anyways, we go back to Chicago. 9 were killed and 54 others were wounded in shootings and other violence citywide over the long Labor Day weekend. Now, this just starts from 5 p.m. Friday and ran to 5 a.m. Tuesday. So earlier Friday, who knows, they may have squeezed in another couple of homicides for all we know in Chicago. They like to get started early when the sun comes up out there. President Donald Trump has called the city a killing field and said it's horrible. It's an American city. He said he planned to send National Guard troops as soon as this week. Now, the reason this comes up is because I'm not going to read the whole story. It doesn't really, we get the headlights so far, or highlights, But if you watch the news, the governor of the state of Illinois, Pritzker, I believe his name is. And then you have, I think Johnson is the mayor of Chicago. Both of these guys they're literally trying to outdo each other, tripping over themselves, trying to talk about how much they don't need any federal intervention in their city. And they have the violence under control. Guys, does 54 shot and 9 dead in one long weekend, does that sound like it's under control? And the shame of it is I love Chicago. I used to visit there. I wouldn't say frequently, but I've been there a number of times. I used to love the city. It can be a very beautiful city, phenomenal food. And it's like, most big cities, if not all of them, they have their own feel. And I like the feel that Chicago has. It's got a neat attitude. I like going there, the vibe. But man, the violence, and it's interesting because I'm seeing on social media, there are a number of like influencer videos that popped up just in the last day or two about how awesome and safe Chicago is. And people want to, saying the influencers saying they want to move there and all this stuff. And they're getting slaughtered in the comments, much like the citizens of Chicago are being slaughtered by other citizens with guns because they're like, are you insane? Why would you want to move to Chicago? Because, and I'm not saying that the whole city is all bad, but the crime is out of control. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. Just for a breakdown for those interested, 16 of the wounded were involved in 3 attacks. A mass shooting in Bronzeville that left 7 wounded. Another mass shooting in Oakland that hospitalized 5. And a drive-by in Humboldt Park that injured 4. So, yeah, there's no planet on Earth. Excuse me. There's no universe. Let me rephrase that. There's no universe where you can sit here and say that the crime in Chicago is under control. 54 shot, 9 dead in one long holiday weekend. So what a mess. Hopefully they get it cleaned up. Whoever does it and it gets it done, doesn't really matter. People shouldn't be really, framing this in politics. What you should want is safety. and security for your citizens. So wherever you're at. But that is the current state of affairs in Chicago. Okay, now we go to an interesting story. I find the topic of electric vehicles pretty interesting. There's always the debate, electric or gas, and this is where it starts coming to a head in certain cities and states around the country here in the United States now. They are basically mandating and forcing gas vehicles out over the next couple of months, years, or in some cases already in effect by setting emission standards and other things that simply cannot be met by these traditional fossil fuel vehicles, gasoline and diesel. And so that's forcing people to look at electric vehicles. Now, I'm not opposed, and I think this is where sometimes this issue everything becomes political. This gets politicized. Well, I'm not personally speaking for myself. This is Wilson's opinion now, not some factoid. I'm not opposed to the concept of electric vehicles, but right now they are just not there. The infrastructure is not there, and there are definitely still some problems and issues that have to be worked out with these electric vehicles. I can't go into the whole thing. We've only got a limited amount of time right here. But if they get it to where they work great, I'm not opposed to the concept of it. But you should also look up what has to be done to get this lithium out of the ground to make these batteries. I wouldn't consider myself a tree hugger by any means. I would consider myself a conservationist because I love the outdoors and I want it to be there for a very, very long time and to be clean and safe and healthy. But it will almost make you cry when you see the state of the ground when they rip all this lithium out of it. And I have to go back and read, but there's something else that basically you can't use that ground for a long time, or it just gets left. I think they strip mine. That's how they do it, but it's horrible. And then it gets taken back and forth across the ocean once or twice in these big ships because the batteries are processed, the lithium is processed, and the batteries are made, I believe, mostly in China. So this myth that the electric vehicles are so clean, it may be cleaner whenever it's in the form of an electric vehicle, but on the journey there, it's a very, very nasty bit of business. And they still have issues with longevity, the electronics, and some of this stuff is very, very expensive to maintain and repair. So we go to the state of Maine. This story comes to us from WGME News. The headline, "We Got Bad Buses." Winthrop and Yarmouth, those are two cities, their electric school buses still unsafe for the road, according to WGME News. The bumpy road for electric school buses continues for two Maine school districts. Now, this is currently going on in Maine, and I read a story. I'll get to more of this in the longer broadcast, maybe this coming week or whatever. But they're mandating these electric school bus programs in certain areas around the states. And this is going to continue to be a problem because look at what happened here. These two cities, Winthrop and Yarmouth, are keeping their electric buses off the road this school year. They bought all these millions of dollars, I believe, worth of school buses, and they can't use them. The Quebec-based manufacturer Lion Electric has filed for bankruptcy. Winthrop has 4 electric buses. Superintendent Becky Foley says the buses have been nothing but trouble. In its first year, one bus lost its brakes and ran into a snowbank, and I quote, "I lost steering and braking while driving, and I literally had to strong-arm steer and strong-arm brake myself into a snowbank to prevent blasting through an intersection," said Winthrop Transportation Director Josh Wheeler. Nobody was hurt. This is driving an electric school bus. He wasn't on some track getting crazy. He's driving a school bus. Nobody was hurt, but the buses have also spent months in repair shops, faced parts recalls, and failed state inspections. "It's very unfortunate we didn't get another model from a different company," Foley said. Now, the problem is there are multiple problems here. Number one, because of the way they got the buses through a grant from the EPA, they are required to keep and maintain the buses for 5 years. They can't do that, however, though, because the company, Lion Electric, has filed for bankruptcy and, according to the article, will not honor the warranty. So they got all these buses sitting here, and they can't do anything with them. They can't even, they're trying to unload them. They can't even get rid of them because they can't get parts, apparently. So they're hoping now the EPA will give them an early out and just let them, offload the things and do whatever they can to get rid of them. But they were given to them by, they didn't actually pay for the buses out of pocket in the school district. They got them through a grant, apparently. So they've got a mess on their hands, and going forward, they don't learn. The Doloff, who was he, the superintendent? I don't know. I can't keep track of all these names on this computer thing here. My my printer is still out of ink, so I can't print these paperwork up like I used to, or like I like to. But they still want to stay with electric. Okay, he says they're Doloff, I guess that was a superintendent or whoever. He hopes Yarmouth can stay electric, but he says their experience with Lion Electric has soured people's opinions. So apparently they can't activate these things and use them because their error message is going off. I don't know how extensive the damage is, but they're having a very difficult time getting parts, and they obviously are going to have a great deal of trouble selling these because who wants to buy a bad electric bus that can't be run or used? Who else is going to buy it but a school district? Now, just for comparison, to get an idea, let's see, a current diesel bus, what most school districts use around the country here, runs about $180,000 brand new. But a new electric bus may cost $400,000 or more. So, given the fact that the government was footing the bill, they probably sold them the super ultra deluxe model, and the things were probably close to $500,000 each. And that one district that had 2 of them, or 4 of them, that's close to $2 million. Who knows if there were any kind of factory, processing fees and delivery and all this other crap. And so this makes you think a little bit. They got these things a couple of years ago, okay, through a government grant. Now, this company took in probably, if I had to guess, millions of dollars worth of money from the government. The U.S. government, it's a Canadian company, for these millions of dollars, allegedly, for these electric school buses. And then, boom, when it comes time to service and fix them, guess what? We're filing bankruptcy. Wow, what a neat business model. Let's take in millions of dollars, and when it comes time to make good on all these repairs and stuff, it's time to file bankruptcy. Now, I don't know if I doubt it went that way exactly. I'm just, going off what the article says here, but they did file for bankruptcy, and these were paid for by the EPA. So I don't know what they're going to do. Hopefully this company can turn around. I'm sure they're trying very hard to turn it around so they can make good on these expensive repairs and get the school district back into the black. But as the superintendent said, it's, quote, going to be a long haul. Okay, now we go back to the state of California. Let's see, we don't have time. Yeah, we'll zoom right through this one. We go to the state of California. Now, this is the funny thing. And again, I alluded to this earlier, that Newsom and Trump and some of these other governors and Trump and some of his people they're constantly, trading barbs with each other. When Trump started saying that he was going to, use the National Guard to go in there and bring crime in D.C. under control, everybody was all criticizing this stupid idea, never work. Now that it has, everybody is saying, we don't need any help. We're doing our own. What we just read last week in the Sunday episode of the MOA broadcast that Newsom is now ramping up all kinds of crime control programs and task forces in California, which begs the question, why wasn't this done all along? I have listeners in California that send me emails, and folks, if you got any questions, feedback, or you want to just tell me you don't like the sound of my voice, send that email to info@gearconvoy.com, and who knows, you may wind up getting yours out over the air. But Newsom goes in there, now all of a sudden, it is time to get this task force rolling and bring crime under control. Now, Trump did the same thing in D.C. They started rounding up the homeless and getting them out of there and getting the place cleaned up. What do we find? We go to KTLA. This is coming to us straight out of California. Newsom launches statewide task force to clear homeless encampments. And my point a minute ago was I have a number of listeners in California that tell me that, this city, and I've been to California, the state, it is out of control. It's nothing like what it used to be. The crime, the homelessness, and just a whole bunch. It's a mess. So why are these people waiting this long until Trump is now doing it? And again, we're not getting political. It's just bizarre. They've had, Newsom has been in office for years. He could have done this stuff. Why? Who knows? Again, you draw your own conclusions, folks. I'm just reporting the facts. But he did on Friday announce the creation of a statewide task force aimed at dismantling homeless encampments on state property and expanding access to shelter and services. They're going to be using a variety of task forces and coordinating efforts across multiple state agencies, including the California Highway Patrol, Caltrans, and the state's health and housing departments. And they're going to focus on encampments along state rights-of-way in California's 10 largest cities: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland, San Diego, Sacramento, San Jose, Long Beach, Anaheim, Bakersfield, and Fresno. So we'll see how that goes. The interesting thing is he has, according to the article here, Newsom had a 2024 executive order which directed encampment cleanups after a U.S. Supreme Court ruling granted state and local governments more authority to remove them. So why in the world? Yeah, that was in 2024. You'd think that's a year ago or possibly more. Anyways, like I said, I'll leave it there. You draw your own conclusions, folks. Let me get a sip here real quickly. Had a delicious dinner last night. Probably my favorite overall dish is steak and eggs, and my favorite cut overall is New York strip, like a nice and medium rare, actually closer to rare, but I usually do medium rare. Get a nice sear on there. I used to use cast iron a lot, but I really like using a stainless steel pan. It's faster. It doesn't take as long to bring up the temp and all that, and it's just very easy to keep clean and so forth. Not that cast iron isn't, but it does take longer to get up to temp and everything else. So that, and like I said, my favorite meal overall is probably steak and eggs. So New York strip, seared, rare to medium rare, and I like my eggs scrambled. Now, if you have never had, look up the recipe for what's it called? Michelin star scrambled eggs. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called or not, but if you look up like on the internet or the YouTubes, Michelin star scrambled eggs, it is like a creamier way to make. The eggs aren't cooked nearly as well done, so they're nice and creamy. It's delicious. It is absolutely fantastic. No cheese or anything like that, just salt, pepper, and you can use either creme fraiche or sour cream as your dairy component to give it a little bit of a creamier taste, and it also kind of slows down the cooking at the end when you get it right where you want it. So try that, look it up. It is fantastic, delicious. My favorite meal overall. If I'm not going to do the Michelin star, style, and there are dozens of ways probably to do it. You'll find a lot of videos. I do mine with like medium to high heat so that it goes quicker. You just need to use a nonstick pan, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is the way to do it for that particular application. So anyway, look that up though. Fantastic way to do eggs. And if I'm not going to do eggs, I like basmati rice with my steak. Just pairs very well. So we move on. Where are we at? Okay. Let's go and wrap it up, folks. We go to Niagara Falls. The headline reads, bath salts, not his usual methamphetamine, led to hallucinations, says man guilty of getting naked at Niagara Falls Hotel. This story comes to us from the Niagara Falls Review. And let's see, where are we at? Oh yeah, let's go ahead and zip this up. We got plenty of time. A man who stripped buck naked inside a Niagara Falls hotel while under the influence of hallucinogenic drugs says he has not used mind-altering substances since the event, according to court, what a court heard on Thursday. James Frederick appeared in Ontario Court of Justice in St. Catharines and pleaded not guilty to a charge of committing an indecent act. The 44-year-old did not, however, contest the facts read by The Crown regarding what happened at the Wyndham Hotel earlier this year because he has no recollection due to a high level of intoxication at the time. On February 3rd, the court heard that Frederick allegedly entered an unlocked room at the hotel, stripped naked, and began to, quote-unquote, let's keep this PG, he touched himself in an inappropriate and adult fashion. When a security guard confronted the intruder and ordered him to leave the room, he invited the woman to take off her clothes and join in touching himself in an inappropriate adult fashion. Allegedly. Defense lawyer Scott Buchanan told the court his client, who struggles with an addiction to crystal methamphetamine, had ingested what he thought was meth that day. However, he soon began to hallucinate. After he came from the high, he believes he had actually taken bath salts, something he was not familiar with, nor did he intend to take that day. The drug bath salts, for those of you who aren't into the drug-taking scene, can induce hallucinations, paranoia, and seizures. The lawyer said his client has not used drugs since that incident, but to be fair, he has spent most of that time in custody since his arrest. The man was sentenced to time served, having served the equivalent of more than 6 months in pretrial custody, and was placed on probation for 18 months. So he apparently was already trespassed from the property due to some, allegedly to some, what had happened? He was already trespassed due to unrelated charges of possessions of property obtained by crime, breaking and entering, and failing to comply with a court order. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Hope you have a great day out there. Again, you got any feedback, hit us up, info@gearconvoy.com, and make sure you stay safe. and we will go ahead and let you go. Remember, folks, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.